By now, many of us who travel in the deeper waters of self-inquiry have heard of the shadow. It is Carl Jung's famous and enduring term for the parts of ourselves that we repress and hide in the dark basement of the psyche. We have come to understand that this inner monster is made of our rejected anger, our shame, our greed, and our fears. And the popular wisdom, born from decades of therapeutic practice, has given us a clear directive on how to deal with this difficult inner reality. We are told to integrate the shadow. But what we usually mean by this is a gentle therapeutic process. We are taught to make peace with our inner monster, to accept our flaws, to have compassion for our wounded parts. The language is one of soothing, of healing, of calming. The shadow is framed as a frightened, misunderstood animal that needs to be coaxed out of the darkness with kindness and patience. And there is a deep and necessary truth to this. To stop waging a war against the most difficult parts of yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. To learn to look upon your own monstrous qualities without flinching is a profound act of self-acceptance. But what if this is only half of the story? What if, in our modern, comfort-obsessed rush to heal every wound and to calm every storm, we have forgotten to ask a more dangerous question? What is this monster for? What is the purpose of all this raw, chaotic, and powerful energy? A lion that has been declawed, sedated, and domesticated is no longer a threat, it is true. But it is also no longer a lion. It has been stripped of its power, its vitality, and its very essence. What if, in our attempt to create a perfectly safe and peaceful inner world, we are performing a similar kind of spiritual neutering upon ourselves? What if I told you that there is a deeper, more challenging, and far more powerful interpretation of Jung's great work? A secret that is often whispered in the inner circles of depth psychology, but rarely spoken aloud in the gentle world of modern self-help. The secret is this: the shadow is not just a wounded animal to be healed. It is a powerful, untamed, and utterly amoral weapon. It is a sword lying dormant in the stone of your unconscious. And the ultimate goal of the great work of individuation is not just to acknowledge the existence of the sword, but to find the courage to pull it from the stone and learn how to wield it. To weaponize your shadow is not to become an evil person. It is to become a formidable one. It is the art of taking the raw, primal, and often destructive energies that sabotage your life, your rage, your selfish ambition, your aggression, your cunning, and learning to consciously refine and direct them toward a noble and chosen goal. It is the secret that separates the merely whole person from the truly effective one. This is the forbidden chapter of shadow work. It is the art of turning the very thing that terrifies you into your greatest strategic advantage. It is the secret to moving from a state of being a victim of your own unconscious drives to becoming the master of them. This video is not about how to make peace with your inner monster. It is about how to unsheath the powerful sword it guards, and finally, learn how to use it. The word that lies at the heart of all Jungian psychology is integration. But this single powerful word has been interpreted in two profoundly different ways. The first is the safe, therapeutic interpretation that has become popular in our modern culture. The second is the older, more dangerous, and more powerful interpretation that constitutes the great secret of this work. To understand how to weaponize your shadow, you must first understand the crucial difference between these two paths. The first path is one of passive integration. This is the process of healing and self-acceptance. In this model, the goal of shadow work is to reduce the internal conflict that is tearing you apart. You learn to acknowledge your repressed anger so that it stops bursting out in destructive ways. You learn to accept your hidden vulnerability so that you can have more authentic relationships. You learn to see your own flaws without judgment so that you stop projecting them onto others. The primary benefit of this path is a reduction of the shadow's unconscious control over your life. It is an essential and courageous first step. It is the process of mapping the dark territory of your own soul. Without this step, any attempt to use the shadow's power is not a form of mastery, but a simple and dangerous possession. You must know your monster before you can ever hope to tame it. But this is where the popular narrative stops, and it stops right before the most important part of the journey. This brings us to the second, more dangerous path, the path of active integration. This is not a process of healing, it is a process of harnessing, This is a more Nietzschean and pragmatic reading of Jung. It recognizes that the shadow is not just a repository of our wounds and flaws. It is a vast and primal reservoir of amoral power. The shadow contains all the raw, instinctual, and aggressive energies that our polite, civilized persona has rejected. It contains our ambition. It contains our rage. It contains our cunning. It contains our competitive drive. It contains our capacity for dominance. In the safe version of integration, we are taught to simply accept and contain these forces to make sure they don't cause any harm. But in the active version, the great secret is that these dark energies are not only useful, they are absolutely essential for achieving anything of great consequence in the real world. True, world-changing ambition is a form of refined and directed greed. True courage in the face of conflict is a form of channeled and disciplined aggression. True strategic thinking is a form of conscious and controlled cunning. The good, polite, and perfectly balanced person who has merely accepted their shadow is at a profound disadvantage in a world that is still, and always will be, an arena of competing wills. To deny yourself access to the power of your own shadow is to enter a sword fight armed with nothing but a shield. Jung himself was an alchemist of the soul, and alchemy provides the perfect metaphor for this process. Your shadow, with all of its raw, chaotic, and base qualities, is the prima materia, the raw, worthless lead. The process of passive integration is the act of acknowledging that you possess this lump of lead and learning not to be ashamed of it. But the process of active integration is the true alchemical work. It is the difficult, fiery, and intentional process of building a furnace, melting down that base material, and consciously transmuting it into gold. Or to use our other metaphor, it is the act of taking the raw, dangerous iron ore of your unconscious and forging it, with the heat of discipline and the hammer of your own will, into a sharp and formidable weapon. To speak of weaponizing the shadow is to speak a language that, for most of my life, I was taught to fear. I was a devout believer in the virtue of harmlessness. I saw the aggressive, competitive, and dominant aspects of the human character as the source of all the world's pain, the very definition of the monster. And so I made a conscious and deliberate vow. I would not be that person. I would build my identity on the opposite principles, on cooperation, on agreeableness, on a kind of gentle, passive decency. I believed that to be a good person, I had to be a harmless one. And I was terrified of the immense power of my own shadow. This philosophy was put to the test in the most brutal of arenas, the modern workplace. I was part of a team, working on a high-stakes project. I was passionate about the work, and I believed with a kind of naive sincerity that my diligence and the quality of my ideas would be enough to see me through. I operated with a radical transparency, sharing my insights freely, believing that we were all on the same team, and that the best idea, regardless of its source, would naturally rise to the top. I diligently avoided any form of office politics, which I saw as a dirty and dishonorable game. I refused to engage in self-promotion, believing that my work should speak for itself. There was, however, a colleague who was playing a different game. On the surface, they were charismatic and collaborative, but I could feel an undercurrent of something else, a sharp and relentless ambition that I found unsettling. They were a master of the subtle art of power. They would take the ideas I shared freely in a group setting and repackage them as their own in a private meeting. They would agree with me in person, and then subtly question my competence in an email chain I wasn't a part of. They were not overtly aggressive. They were far too intelligent for that. They were a strategic and effective player, and I, in my noble refusal to play the game, was not a player at all. I was merely a piece on the board. Predictably, when the time came for a promotion that we were both contenders for, they got it. And the feedback I received was a masterclass in the language of gentle dismissal. I was praised for being a wonderful collaborator, a great team player, and a really nice guy. I had been given a pat on the head and a consolation prize for my own virtuous powerlessness. My initial reaction was a surge of pure, unadulterated resentment. The system is corrupt, I told myself. The world is unjust. My pure motives lost. out to their dirty tricks. I wrapped myself in the warm, self-righteous blanket of the noble victim, but in the quiet, honest moments that followed, a deeper and far more painful truth began to emerge. Had I lost because the world was unjust? Or had I lost because I was profoundly, strategically, and willfully unprepared for the reality of the world? My failure was not a moral victory. It was a catastrophic failure of integration. I had brought a shield to a sword fight. My rival was not necessarily a better person, but they were a wholer person, in the most challenging sense of the word. They had access to their own ambition, to their own cunning, to their own aggression, and they were not afraid to use those tools to achieve their goals. I, on the other hand, had left my own weapons locked in the basement because I was terrified of them. I had not lost because I was too good. I had lost because I was incomplete. And that is when I finally understood. The great secret is that power itself is not evil. It is merely a force, like fire or gravity. It is unconscious power, the repressed and unacknowledged power of the shadow that is truly dangerous. It leaks out sideways as bitterness, as passive aggression, as self-sabotage. The great work, the truly dangerous and necessary work, is to consciously go down into the basement, to pick up the sword that you have been so afraid of, to feel its weight in your hand, and to learn how to wield it with intention, with discipline, and for a purpose that you consciously choose. To pick up the sword of the shadow is to hold a dangerous weapon. If you are not trained in its use, you are more likely to harm yourself or others than you are to achieve any noble aim. So how do we learn to wield this power without becoming the very monster we once feared? The answer is not found in repression, nor is it found in unleashing the beast to run wild. The answer is found in the difficult and sacred art of sublimation. Sublimation is a form of psychological alchemy. It is the process of taking the raw, base, and often destructive energy of our primal instincts and consciously transmuting it into a higher, more refined, and more creative form. It is a practice in 3 stages: identifying the raw energy, finding a noble aim, and the disciplined act of channeling. The first stage is to identify the raw energy beneath the surface of your shadow emotions. You must become an expert at looking past the story your ego tells you and seeing the pure, amoral fuel that is driving the feeling. The practice is to pause when a powerful shadow emotion grips you and ask, what is the raw, primal energy here? Let's take the most common examples. When you feel the hot, bitter sting of envy, the story is, I hate that person for having what I want. But the raw energy is pure, unadulterated ambition and desire. Envy is simply ambition without a work ethic. When you feel a surge of destructive rage, the story is, that person has wronged me and must be punished. But the raw energy is pure aggression, the primal force for destroying obstacles and enforcing boundaries. When you feel a flash of selfish greed, the story is, I must have more for myself. But the raw energy is a powerful drive for security and the accumulation of resources. By relabeling the emotion with the name of its underlying energy source, you strip it of its negative moral judgment and begin to see it for what it is, a neutral and incredibly potent source of fuel. Once you have identified the fuel, you must move to the second stage. You must find a noble aim. Raw, undirected energy is always destructive. A powerful engine with no steering wheel will inevitably crash and burn. You must provide your primal energies with a worthy and constructive goal to move toward, an aim that is aligned with your highest, consciously chosen values. This is the art of giving your inner weapon a noble target. For example, the raw energy of ambition can be aimed at the petty and destructive goal of tearing down your rival. Or it can be sublimated and aimed at the noble goal of building a business that solves a real-world problem, or of creating a work of art that enriches the culture. The raw energy of aggression can be aimed at getting into a pointless argument online, or it can be sublimated and aimed at attacking a difficult intellectual problem, at fighting for a genuine injustice, or at having the courage to set a firm boundary with a loved one. You are consciously choosing a noble and difficult battlefield for your inner warrior. This leads to the final and most practical stage, the daily discipline of channeling. This is where the alchemical transformation actually happens. You must create a conscious and ritualized habit of taking the raw feeling and immediately applying its energy to your chosen noble aim. When you feel the sting of envy after seeing a colleague's success, you do not allow yourself to fester in resentment. You recognize the raw energy of ambition, and you immediately channel it. You say internally, "Thank you for this fuel," and you go to your desk and work with a ferocious focus on your own project for 1 hour. You turn the poison of envy into the medicine of your own motivation. When you feel the surge of rage at the state of the world, you do not scream into the void of the internet. You channel that aggressive energy into a disciplined workout. Or you sit down and write a clear, logical, and passionate argument for the change you wish to see. This is the great work. It is the daily, moment-by-moment discipline of taking the most dangerous and powerful parts of yourself and making them the engine of your own creation and self-overcoming. We began this journey with the image of a sword in the stone, the raw, dangerous, and untamed power of the shadow, hidden within each of us. For too long, the only advice we have been given is to be careful of this weapon. The path of passive acceptance teaches us to acknowledge the sword, perhaps even to pull it from the stone and place it safely in a glass case. We can look at it, we can respect its potential, we can learn not to be ashamed of it. And this is a profound and necessary first step, but it is not the end of the journey. The great secret, the forbidden chapter of this work, is that there is another, more complete path. It is the path of the warrior, of the alchemist, of the blacksmith. It is the path that dares not just to look at the sword, but to spend a lifetime learning how to wield it with skill, with precision, and with a consciously chosen purpose. To weaponize your shadow is to fundamentally transform your goal for yourself. The goal is no longer to be a good person. A good person in our modern sense is often just a harmless person, a person who has made the decision to keep their sword permanently locked away out of fear. The goal is also not to be a bad person, who simply swings the sword wildly and unconsciously, driven by their basest impulses. The goal is to become a formidable person. A formidable person is a whole person. They have integrated their light and their dark. They have access to the full, terrifying, and powerful spectrum of their own humanity, their capacity for profound kindness, and their capacity for disciplined aggression, their ability to cooperate, and their ability to compete with a relentless fire. They are not harmless. They are, in fact, incredibly dangerous. But they have chosen, through the difficult and daily work of self-overcoming, to place that danger in the service of a noble and life-affirming aim. This is the dangerous whole human that Jung's work makes possible. Learning to wield the full force of your own character is the great and perilous work of a lifetime. If you are ready to stop being harmless and start being formidable, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, and now begin your strategic thinking. Share one thought in the comments below. What is one shadow energy, like anger or ambition, that you have been suppressing? And what is one constructive, noble goal you could channel it toward? Your answer is your first step in picking up your own sword.